Yes. What you see here is a small part of a school map, actually, from the early 20th century. And it's the picture, or the 5 pictures of the 5 human races as they were regarded at that time. And you can specifically see that the European man in the center is represented by Napoleon Bonaparte himself, which is rather odd, actually. I think this is a rather typical example of what we would regard as sensitive collections. Try to change my view here. At least in our definition, sensitive collection is a rather broad definition of matters, documents, pictures, and so forth in our collections that could be racist or colonial, stereotypical, misogynistic, sexist or homophobic, offensive, or generally just unpleasant, outdated, or discriminatory. It's more or less in the eye of the observer to actually define what is on a daily basis sensitive or not. I don't think there will ever be a very specific definition. And it, of course, it's a question of the staff being very sensitive for these kinds of different definitions. What we're doing in Sweden presently at the National Library is that we are trying to define a policy for sensitive collections. And we have a draft document. I will be pleased to share it with you later. But this draft policy have 3 parts or sections. The first one is about making available and accessibility. The second part is about terminology and metadata. And the third part is about mediation and curation. Acquisition is not a topic for the National Library of Sweden because we get most of our collections by legal deposit. So we really don't have the opportunity to choose what to add to our collections and what not to add to our collections. Later on, there will also be an action plan supplemented to the policy if we finish the document in time. When it comes to making available and accessibility, we have tried to formulate some general standing points. And the first one is that the making available of materials from our collections must take place to the greatest possible extent, regardless of who the administrator, the staff, or user is, and regardless of whether the content can in various ways be perceived as offensive or outdated and so forth. And the exceptions to this principle must be as few as possible and assume that the material material is not illegal to possess or make available, must always be made available without taking a position on the content. Accessibility according to the above shall also, as far as possible, take place without our staff expressing personal values or opinions in connection with this accessibility. And this goes for all forms of materials on all platforms. Then the question of terminology and metadata. Descriptions in catalog entries, that is metadata of material in our collections, must be as neutral and factual as possible without unnecessary interpretations and values. And terminology used in descriptions must always follow established and updated standards and terminology lists, regardless of which system the material is cataloged in. Existing concepts and descriptions in our catalog should in principle not be changed. But however, outdated or problematic sensitive concepts or descriptions that express, for example, discrimination should be commented on and put in an updated context. And to the extent that such adjustments are made in catalogs and descriptions, this must be done with transparency and traceability. I'm moving forward to the second part of the terminology and metadata part of this this draft. Older catalogs and metadata that accompany deliveries or are imported must routinely be provided with a disclaimer stating that the descriptions may contain outdated or problematic concepts. And due to our present assignment to implement the national minorities libraries as a resource library for the nation as a whole, special attention should be paid to descriptions that concern the national minorities, including the indigenous Sami people. If necessary, our ethics council with representative of the national minorities can be consulted on terminology issues. And in case of uncertainty about the presence of outdated or problematic concepts and interpretations in catalog entries, etc., a more general comment can be made in connection with, for example, a catalog or a search service. And moving on to mediation and curation, to the extent that materials that is actively highlighted by our staff through mediation or curation can be perceived as offensive or contains outdated or discriminatory terminology, the selection must be justified on the basis of clear and transparent criteria. When material referred to above is highlighted through mediation or curation, the selection should, if possible, be commented on and placed in an updated context. In case of uncertainty about the sensitivity of a specific material, a more general comment can be made in connection with, for example, an exhibition or a public program. And the same principles shall, of course, apply to all forms of mediation and curation on all platforms. This is the essence of the recommendations in this draft. And I will be pleased to share it with you later on. What now? Well, we are in the ongoing internal process disrupted by the pandemic, of course, with a hope for a finalized document sometimes after this summer. And we are also in consultation with several national minorities, the Sami people, the Swedish Finns, the Tornedalers, the Roma and the Jews. We have 5 national minorities in Sweden, plus our fellow cultural heritage institutions here in Sweden and in the Nordic region. We also appreciate input, criticism, and inspiration from the broader library and cultural heritage community. And this is, of course, what we are doing right now, the dialogue with you. And hopefully this can end up in some kind of broader understanding, not on the text specifically, perhaps, but on the main topics and main problems and main solutions that we all share with each other. And this is just a few notes on my contact details. So far, we are on track, I suppose, with this draft, and I hope to present a finalized paper for decision to the National Librarian sometimes during or after this summer. And I also very grateful for all the inspiration and input I can get from you, my fellow colleagues. Thank you.